Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. This is our second tutorial in the free motion quilting series that we're doing. It's a nice intro to free motion quilting. It's also our second tutorial on the Stipple Meander. So yesterday we used all of the stipple stencils to get our muscle memory down. That is a really important part of learning to quilt, is just having your body know where to go next. It's kind of like when you learn to drive a car. It's a little awkward at first, but eventually your feet just know where the foot pedals are and how to slam on the brake when it's necessary. It's like that with quilting. All right, so what we're gonna do next is we're also gonna work on some muscle memory. So today we're gonna work on changing scale. So you're gonna wanna have some scratch paper for this part of it, or a dry erase board like I have here. So we're gonna take another one of these squares, and if you're following along, we do have kits available in 4 different colorways where you can get solid fabrics to practice on, so you can focus on where your stitches are instead of, you know, what's going on with that crazy print, and just eliminate one section of it. You also can just get the stencil and pounce pad kits if you've got fabric at home that you want to use. But what we're going to do today is we're going to work on scale. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a triangle, because I want to do small scale on the outside and big scale on the middle. So I have this stencil, or this sample that we did from the stencil out, because I want to be able to change the scale of that. I want it to be smaller than this for the outside and bigger than this for the inside. So a good reason why you want to practice this with some scratch paper or a dry erase board like this is for 2 reasons. One, it helps that build that muscle memory before you're using your good fabric on it and your good thread. And also it helps teach you how to get yourself out of corners, because a big part of quilting is knowing how to move around your quilt so you don't back yourself into a corner and you can just quilt smoothly from side to side. So I'm going to go ahead and get started up here. Your goal is to be able to do this without lifting your pen, because obviously you're not going to lift your needle. So I'm going to start just by drawing a tiny stipple meander, kind of working my way around. And I'm going to work my way back up here, kind of go down. And you can do this exercise as many times as you want to. And when I get down to the ends like this, I kind of just squiggle my way down into the corner. You can do this as many times as you want until you feel confident enough to go in. Now, this is not that much smaller than this here, but it's gonna look different. All right, so now I want my meander to be bigger. So we're gonna do some big loops in the center here. And I'm kind of like to work my way from top to bottom. Sometimes that works out better than others. But again, just do that little loop-de-loop up to the top. Now, when we're actually doing all this, I'm just gonna pause with my needle and then kind of change directions. All right, so now I want to go back to the smaller scale, but I want it to be about the same scale as what I've already done, so that way we kind of have some symmetry as we work around here. And remember, our only goal with the stipple meander is to be able to have nice smooth curves and not cross our lines. So that's not so bad, is it? As we go our way down. All right, so this is our goal. Practice this as many times as you need to with scratch paper or dry erase, and then you're going to be ready to do it on the real deal. All right, so my top block measures 10.5 inches. So half of that is 5 1/4. So I'm just going to make a little mark up there. Then I'm just going to mark in from our corners to that center mark, just to give myself that triangle guide. This is where that friction gel pen comes in handy, because it can create the look of a piece block without actually having to piece anything. Now, just so you guys can see this better when I'm actually quilting it, I'm going to go off camera real quick, and I'm going to take my walking foot and just go straight up and down that. And I'm going off camera because I've got a walking foot set up on another sewing machine in our sewing center. One thing I totally forgot to tell you guys in the first video is if you have a machine where the feed dogs can go down, that's this part down here. It's usually a little clip in the back. Push that over. The other option is you can set your stitch length to 0, and then they won't move and get in your way. All right, so I'm going to start just like the last video by pulling that bobbin thread to the top. By taking that step first, it ensures you don't have a jumbled mess at the bottom when you're all done. All right, so now my goal is to just make a smaller scale stipple meander with no curve, or with all curves, no points, and also no crossing. And that's really it. I want to fill this space. I want to not block myself in and just kind of get used to it. All right, first kind of get myself up to speed, see what I'm comfortable with. It's always kind of the first step. And at this point, I'm kind of setting the stage for how small do I want to go. Because whatever I choose with this first section is what I got to maintain. The rest of the block, and if you're doing this is for the whole quilt, it's also for the whole quilt. Now I don't have any lines to tell me where to go next, so that is all up to me, so I can kind of move around. What I want to try to keep in mind though is I gotta back myself out once I hit that tip. So I kind of try to think of this as puzzle pieces where they just kind of loop around funny until you get to where you want. So I'm going to try to work my way up to that corner and then use my little loops and curves to fill in as I work my way down. A lot of times I'll work either top to bottom or side to side, and then some mixture there in between. So obviously I went down that curve, but I had to fill in a little bit behind me. I'm going to kind of work my way around as I do that. Had some big stitches there, so I got to be careful not to do that again. Work my way down a little bit, I think. And this little curvy line always kind of helps you move where you need to go. Had a big stitch there where things kind of moved about more than I wanted to. A little pointy line. That's an indication when you have two big mistakes like that, that your hands probably are in an place where you can't control it. So it's time for me to stop, reposition, and start it going again. I get myself up to speed here. And remember, it doesn't matter how fast or how slow you're going, as long as it's nice and even, and the sound you're hearing with how fast that machine is going up and down, and in relation to how you're moving the fabric. You want both of those to be nice and even so you can have as even stitches as you can create. You're not a machine, it's not going to look like a long arm with a stitch regulator, but you can do your best. All right, we stitched down to the corner. Now I'm going to change gears and I'm going to go big. It's kind of hard because I don't have a lot to grip onto there. All right, you want a nice big loop here. Like I could have even gone bigger. Sometimes it's hard to go very large on the home sewing machine because you're kind of limited by how large your machine throat is. That's the distance between your needle and where kind of all the mechanics of your sewing machine are. I'm not limited like that in the same way on my long arm. So I'm kind of definitely seeing that my stitches are looking a little bigger here than I would like them to. And that's all just part of the difference of going back and forth from your domestic to your long arm. They do make sit down mid arms, but honestly I feel like if you're going to spend the money on a big machine that's large enough to go in a quilting frame, if you have the space, just get the frame. Because it's going to go a lot faster and it's going to be a lot easier on your body if you're just moving the machine and not also manipulating the entire quilt. All right, so I've kind of gone from side to side there. I'm going to go up a little just to mix it up so it doesn't look so repetitive, because we want it to kind of feel organic. All right, we're going to swoop it up to that point. Looking good. All right, so now we're done with our big section. Now I want to match this section over here in terms of my scale. So I'm going to fill in now my other side, but try to keep that same scale as in the original. That's almost the hardest part, is maintaining scale throughout the quilt. Here we just have to do it for a third of a block. That's not so bad. But when you're talking the whole quilt all the way down, that is something you got to work on when you're getting started. And then I don't think I got it quite right here. I need to get it a teeny bit smaller, I think. Oops, got a big stitch there. Again, when you have mess ups like that, it means it's time to reposition those hands. So we're going to do just that. All right, I'm feeling better about matching that scale now. That's good. I'm going to work my way down a little bit. And then we can go back up. Just to mix it up a little bit so it's not so back and forth. A little pointy there. That means it's time to stop, change those hands about. Just wiggle it down to that corner. All right, so here we have it. We have our changing in scale, and you can see how big of a difference it makes. We have our nice little scale here on sort of the outside of our triangle, and then our big scale in the center. Is everything perfect? Absolutely not. But does it look good? Yes, it does. And if I would have used a matching thread instead of a white so you guys could see it, you would not really even tell where there are little, imperfections. So again, our goal was to change scale, have something smaller, have something larger, try to have curves instead of points, and to keep our stitches as regular as possible. And this is really fun. We'll take it and compare it to the original. This is looking fun. We definitely achieved our goal of changing scale. So this one is a nice medium. This one is kind of a smallish medium. And then we have a larger scale one here. So this looks very different. If we did this on piecing, this would look great as an all-over meander. If we did this one on an equilateral triangle block, this would look really cool too, because you could do your backgrounds here, and then where you have maybe your print, where that is gonna maybe shine, you can go a little bigger and have some fun. So by changing scale, you really can alter the look of the design and help dress your quilt up a lot. One of the quilts we're going to look at in the show and tell is all stipple, all everywhere, but by doing things like changing thread and changing scale, we were able to really dress it up and take a really simple stitch and make it look very pretty. All right, so for the next one, we're going to be drawing out an actual block, and we're going to be using the Stipple Meander in the background. All right, stay tuned. We're going to work on building that skill set and getting you to be a pro at free motion quilting.